I mean, it's one of those moments, right, that we'll always refer to, like September 11th and other dates, kind of like where were you moments. But I was leaving a work event, and then I had two employees who were at a different work event with a different group of people. So, I immediately got home that night, checked on my own children, brought them home from where they were, checked on all of our staff to make sure that they were okay and that our guests at the event were okay.
This is Davy's Doghouse. If you're a home seller or soon to be one, we'll throw you a bone. Hey everybody, welcome to the Doghouse. This podcast is typically based on talking to sellers who are selling their homes and seeing what they might want to do to get ready to sell their homes. But today I have a special guest to talk to the events that happened last October 25th in Lewiston, the mass shooting, and what has taken place since then regarding funding and the support and care of all the people in our community. So I'm going to welcome Shanna Cox, Shanna, who's the CEO and president of the LA Metro Chamber of Commerce. And Shanna met with us a couple weeks ago at my Rotary Club meeting and did a presentation on what happened with all of the funds that came in, all of the people that were involved in the effort to help our community. I don't want to say move past, because we probably haven't moved past, but try to get moving forward through this really amazing tragedy that happened. So Shanna, I'm going to turn this over to you. And I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Oh, I wanted to say one thing about Shanna. She just was awarded yesterday the Lee Young Leadership Award, which was presented by the YWCA in Lewiston. Shanna, tell me a little bit about that. What is that award?
Well, I'll say it's much more comfortable for me to be on the presenting awards to others side of things, which is where I usually exist.
Yeah.
Lee Young was a mayor in this community and did amazing things. And so this award is in recognition of her. And the nomination came from a group of board members and some others, and was a bit of a surprise. It was lovely.
Well deserved. I know that. I've known you for a while, and you do great work in our community. And this is National Women's History Month, I believe, March.
It is.
So it's kind of apropos. I'm sure that had something to do with it, but congratulations on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you're all set, I'm just going to click on this button here and turn this over to you so people can see your presentation.
Thank you.
Take it away.
I really appreciate you helping me share this with others, David. It's for us, you'll be hearing a little bit more about the role that we played during and after October 25th. And for us, I think it's important to share this information largely out of transparency, and so that those who donated funds know exactly where those funds went and how they were used. And we were honored to be trusted to play a fundraising coordination role. And we just really want to make sure folks know what we did with those funds, the good that it did, that if you donated, thank you, what you did. And so, on October 25th, this is a little bit about the role that LA Metro Chamber of Commerce played. We supported frequent communications. We helped co-organize the One Lewiston Vigil that reached thousands. 4,000 people showed up that night, and we reached many, many more with closed captioning as well as ASL interpretation, which was really important to us. We also played a role in advising donors on how they could set up a fund if they wanted to, where people could put their funds and what those funds would support based on the different donation funds that we were managing, as well as the partners that we worked with in the philanthropic community. And then we did support information sharing and partnerships across philanthropic efforts. As you know, there was many, many philanthropic efforts that arised out of October 25th. And then we acted as an information conduit, and onelewiston.org is still up, and it still has current information. We update it regularly, and so you can always go there. You'll see more as we come up on the 1-year memorial date. We're going to use that website to make sure people know all of the different activities that are happening. After October 25th, we continued a number of those roles, advising donors, partnering with philanthropy, and sharing information. We also really increased our amount of activity doing inbound donation management. That was the tracking, making sure that there's IRS documentation for people who made donations. And then we also supported the expenses. The money comes in, but it also needs to go out. So we managed the expense end of things, and then did provide direct financial support to victims. And we did those in different ways. And so I'll talk that through a little bit with you. These are the funds that we managed. We managed the Celebration of Life Memorial Fund. That was on behalf of Governor LePage. We managed the Lewiston Strong Memorial Benefit Softball Tournament. That's a group that now is achieving their own 501c3 to support ongoing annual fundraising activities. We're really proud of their growth. We worked with the Maine Credit Union League to support a fund on behalf of them and their members. And we also worked with the city of Lewiston in conjunction with Androscoggin Bank for the One Lewiston Fund. And then there's the Small Business Relief Fund, and that is of the funds that we manage. That's the only fund that was the chambers to begin. The other funds that you're seeing here are all funds that we supported based on donor advisement, kind of the originators of those funds. So we want to give you a little bit of information by fund about what happened. So we had about $445,000 roughly come in through the Celebration of Life Fund. All but $2,000 of those went right back out. And of all of the funds that we manage, this $2,000 administration fee is the only fee that the chamber received for these efforts. And so it's pretty small. It was really important that funds flowed through us and directly to those they were intended to. We distributed 442,000 and some change funds, and this is what that looked like. Based on the donor and how they wanted the funds to be distributed, these funds went in equal shares to 31 individuals. Those were the legal heirs for the folks who lost a loved one on October 25th, as well as the gunshot survivors. A similar piece to this is how the Lewiston Strong Memorial Softball Tournament funds were allocated. They raised a little over $207,000. The softball tournament was started by a group of folks who played softball with two close friends who we lost on October 25th. And so originally their intention was to support those two families. They were more successful than they had anticipated with the funds they raised. And so they managed to share their funds a little bit beyond. The 14 heirs received $10,313 each. The two families which started the softball tournament received a little bit more based on a particular activity that happened during the softball tournament. And then again, a second activity provided funds for the gunshot survivors. And so this is the breakdown of that fund and how those dollars were distributed to those directly impacted. The Maine Credit Union League has a longstanding philanthropic priority around supporting hunger and nutrition. And so they knew that they wanted to respond to this event with their members, both the credit unions and the credit union members, and that there needed to be a tie-in for food and nutrition. So their funds, about $36,500 came in and went right back out, specifically for food-based supports. So that looked like about $13,000 going to first responders in the form of grocery cards. That included not just our police officers, but also our fire department professionals, our public works professionals, and our dispatchers in both Auburn and Lewiston. And I think often when we're thinking about first responders, we might forget that it is that many, and those are the folks that showed up that day and supported on-site logistics in the following days. The Maine Resiliency Center is a hub of activity for not just those who were there and directly impacted, but their family members, our community members, the businesses close by and adjacent can get support. There's a number of activities at the Resiliency Center. One of the things that their funding source does not support is food. And so this roughly $11,000 almost went to support both a pantry on site for food for events and for folks who are visiting to take home. But it also supported some specific meals for volunteers and staff in the opening days and weeks, as well as a couple of events that they held to support those who were directly impacted. Their funds also supported Trinity Jubilee, which was one of the few places that was open for emergency food support during the shutdown and lockdown. So we refilled their pantry. And then a significant portion of the funds went directly to survivors in the form of grocery gift cards to help them in the weeks following the event on October 25th. And then lastly, there was the City of Lewiston Fund. This is sometimes referred to as the One Lewiston Fund. This fund was a little bit unique compared to the other funds. So the dollars raised here, as you can tell on this slide, a large portion of those dollars went to the Maine Community Foundation to be distributed to the victims and families based on their process and their kind of allocation formula. But there was about $90,000 that we worked with the victims advocates who were working directly with the families through the Attorney General's office and the Resiliency Center to support immediate short-term needs based on kind of basic life supports on a month-to-month basis. And so that looked like us working with them to pay mortgages or rents, to ensure that their transportation needs were met. And that was everything from car notes or insurance payments to brake lines or windshields. We supported utilities, heating costs. We did support medical costs. Medical costs were largely covered by the Victims' Compensation Fund through the state of Maine. So these small dollars were actually spent on providing accommodations. So that looked like ramps, it looked like beds for people returning home from the hospital that could move. And then we did make small debt payments. We didn't pay anyone's debt, but we did make sure that they weren't incurring fees or late payment fees or having an adverse impact to their credit score. So we made the minimum payments on any debt payments. And we supported about 60 households through this process and with this fund. And then lastly, there's the Small Business Relief Fund. We've had about $710,000 donated to that. We have re-granted right back out to date about $610,000. We did phase one grant awards, which were kind of low barrier and an immediate support. So we turned those around really quickly to businesses in need. We had 91 awards that were up to $1,000. And then the second phase was need-based. And this one, we did support 34 businesses with about $520,000 worth of funds. There, if you're doing math, you can tell there's still some funds available there. So far, we've spent about $15,000 plus in regional marketing efforts. You might have seen the local LA flavor contest. February, we did LA is for Lovers. Our hospitality industry had a disproportionate impact from October 25th. So we've been targeting some funds to those groups of businesses specifically. And you'll see this marketing push continue throughout all of 2024. So that's just a little bit about where your funds, if you donated or know someone who did, that's where they went and the good that they did. We were really honored to be trusted in this role and really appreciate the opportunity to share more with you, David, and folks who are watching about where those funds went.
Well, that's great, Shanna. And it's your presentation. I was, marked by it at the Rotary Club by how clear it was and how transparent it was, and how we had no idea that the scope of which people had given, the amount of types of funds that were brought. And I know that you were a big part of this. So what happened to you, just personally? Like,
Yeah.
what happened, like the day that night and the
Yeah.
next day?
I mean, it's one of those moments, right, that we'll always refer to, like
And,
September 11th and other dates, kind of like where were you moments. But
yeah.
I was leaving a work event, and then I had two employees who were at a different work event with a different group of people. So, I immediately got home that night, checked on my own children, brought them home from where they were, checked on all of our staff to make sure that they were okay and that our guests at the event were okay. So I think I was pretty quickly in a work mode, work space, mental space. And so spent that evening sharing information, learning information for our members, making sure folks had the most accurate information about what was actually happening on the ground, where places were closed or shut down, and really just carried those kind of immediate response needs through the next couple of days, trying to keep communication open to members. And then shuttling around food, helping food from businesses that were closed get to places where people needed food. There was first responders. We had a lot of guests at local hotels who didn't have access to food. There weren't deliveries coming into town, into the hotels. We had a lot of law enforcement, FBI personnel, as well as press staying at local hotels, and our local restaurants did an amazing job at kind of reconfiguring where their food was, getting it to the places that it was needed, including first responders. And so I spent a little bit of time shuttling around food and helping businesses connect with those who needed it. Yeah,
And then from there,
yeah,
it's sort of that was the big bump, right? And then it sort of leveled out to what do we do now?
yeah,
I would imagine that your position as the executive director of the chamber was one where people looked, because nobody really knew what to do at that time. So they needed to look, and you picked up the ball, which was amazing. And that's what I think the big thing is. It could have been anybody in that position, and everybody could have looked at that position, but the person in that position may not have been equipped, capable of picking up the ball and helping get things going. And I know you've been like integral in all of these funds and coordinating between the funds so that if there was overlap, it was good overlap, and if there was overlap that didn't need to happen, maybe you talked about that also, correct?
that's exactly right. I know that I've talked to my peers in other states that have
Mm.
experienced similar incidences, and we didn't respond in a traditional or normal way. I'm not sure that there's a traditional or normal in these circumstances, but um, yeah, I really have to give a lot of credit to my team because we saw gaps and filled them. And I had a team of folks here working with me at the chamber who never second guessed it, who knew that these were our businesses and our neighbors and our community members. And we're happy to step in and do what we could and work with others to collaborate or kind of share information in the weeks that followed. And yeah, it's not something that we talked a lot about at the time. We're really proud to have done it, and to have met a need that was there. But yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
wasn't something that it wasn't something you trained for sure.
no, no, it
You
definitely
know,
wasn't in the chamber manual anywhere. We did look.
Yeah, and the team picking it up and all that stuff. And unfortunately, if something happened again, you'd be good at it at this point, and you don't want that to happen, obviously. But yeah, so we had one of our agents, Bill Berger, on, who is one of our top agents. He's been in the company over 20 years. He is a full-time firefighter for Lewiston, and he was in first at Schmenge's at the bar. And he talks a little bit about the impact it had on him, and
Yeah,
probably will forever. And I know another couple of the cops in Lewiston also. And it's not something that they're going to ever forget. Obviously, it was unbelievable. Um, but we were just so fortunate that you were in our community, you and your team, and all the people. The guys, Zach and those guys that did the softball tournament, and
yep,
um, and the Dempsey Center, pulling in and all that. It was pretty. We're pretty lucky that you were all there. So anyway, is there anything else you wanted to say? And kind of, I hope this was good to get kind of air it out again. I'm sure talking about it, it's
yeah.
helpful
It's
too, right?
it does feel good to talk about it, and
Yeah,
we appreciate the opportunity to share the information. It's while we're proud of the work that we've done and honored to have been trusted, we really are trying to just make sure we're being transparent and that we're sharing information. And so we appreciate the opportunity and the platform to do that so that folks know kind of how these funds were used and how we shepherded them through. And
yeah.
thank you. Thanks for that opportunity.
Yeah, you're welcome. And again, what I always say at the end of my podcast is, a tagline, but obviously we don't know what's going to happen in our day. And this is a great proof that things can change dramatically quickly. So I always say, don't forget, today's the day. Don't dog it.
Yeah, that's a
Have a
great one.
good one, Shanna. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.